Hey everyone, I'm Katie Daryl and he is Bill Pappas and we are all part of Cancer Can Rock. How are you doing today, dude?
I'm doing good, honey. I'm doing great. Thanks.
Man, you got to have the experience. You got to get into the studio and see exactly the magic of Cancer Can Rock. Walk us through today. Tell us what happened.
It was amazing. I had such a great time. I was hesitant going in, but once I got in there and everybody made me feel so comfortable right off the bat, and it was like sitting at home playing around with my friends. It was really a good time. I didn't want it to end. I had such a good time.
And for people who aren't fully familiar with Cancer Can Rock, what we do is we raise money and we get the funding to take musicians who are battling cancer and get them into the recording studio. We make sure that they have the right musicians around them and all the tech, all the gear. We bring in a videographer, and it's a day of making music so that you have a tangible memory for yourself and to share with your family. Tell me about the song that you decided to record. How did you decide what was going to be that number?
Well, it's really a long story. I was diagnosed with cancer about 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago. And somehow Jim Ebert, who is the amazing producer for Cancer Can Rock, found out about it, and he contacted me and asked me to do this. And I was hesitant at the time. I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to make a thing about my having cancer. I didn't necessarily want it publicized, and so I was putting him off, and I put him off, and I put him off, and he hounded me for a very long time. He really stayed on my back. And so finally I decided, okay, if I do this, I want to do a tune called Yellow Moon. And Yellow Moon is a tune written and recorded by the Neville brothers. I have a little 4-piece band, sometimes a 5-piece band, and we do the song, and it's a Latin salsa kind of a feel to it. So I changed up the arrangement quite a bit from the original, and it became a very popular tune in the venues I played. If I was going to record it, I wanted to do it big. I wanted a horn section, I wanted a percussionist, a keyboard player, the whole 9 yards. 9-10 people involved in this production. So I figured that would probably put a kibosh on it. They'd probably say, no, that's too big, you can't do that. That would be my out. And they said yes. So now I kind of had to do it. I had no excuse now. So, okay, what do you want? Yeah, you got it. Oh, you want percussion? Yeah, you got horns? Yeah, you got it. Oh man, now I got
to have this day in the studio, a yes day with all these wonderful musicians, like you said, horns galore. At what point did you ever have to stop and have a pinch me moment and say, is this really happening?
When it was over. When at the end of the session, the other amazing thing is that I envisioned going into the studio, and this song would take 2 to 3 days easy just to lay down the tracks. Forget about mastering and all that other stuff. And when I spoke to Jim, he said, yeah, we're going to bang it out one day. I said, you can't bang it out one day. There's too much going on. There's a lot in this song. He goes, we'll do it in one day. I said, yeah, okay, let's see what happens. We did it in one day. In fact, we ended early. We were supposed to have a dinner break at 6 o'clock. We were done by 6 o'clock. And I was like, and my adrenaline was still going, so I wanted to do more. I started thinking, what else can I add to this song to, just to stay here and keep going with these guys. So cool. And it worked. It was just, the pinch me moment was after I got home, and I said, man, this was amazing. This was truly amazing. On the day I was working, where you're thinking about the music, but when I got home and had that moment just to chill out a little bit, I realized how cool this whole thing really, really was. It's just, I want to do it again.
Don't be greedy. Was there a release? Did you escapism? Were you able to be in the studio and forget about cancer?
Yes, absolutely. And that's kind of the point. When I play, I'm still a working musician, and I work all through my cancer, and because it is an escape. It's the time where I don't have to think about it. I'm just a regular guy in great shape, one of those deals.
With a good head of hair, by the way.
Oh God, I need a haircut actually, but music is my escape. It not only has been my passion my whole life, but through the cancer thing, it's really my escape. I've trimmed back considerably on the amount of work I do because I don't always feel well. I'm still in treatment, and I have bad days and I have really shitty days.
What kind of cancer are we dealing with here? Can you kind of tell?
I have advanced prostate cancer. I was diagnosed. I was diagnosed about 2.5 years ago. They found a tumor about 3 years ago. About 6 months later, I went and I had the biopsy done and found that it was cancer, and it was fairly advanced. But it appeared to still be limited and confined to the prostate. But because my PSA was extremely high, they're not convinced that it hasn't metastasized. So I've been dealing with some very heavy medications and heavy radiation. I still have another 6 months to go of treatment, and then we'll see. They don't know the prognosis until the treatment's done. And I go for blood tests monthly, so they keep track of that. So far, everything looks good, but they really won't know until I'm off the meds, and they see how my numbers go after that, and then we'll know.
Can we talk about the healing power of music? Have you been leaning on, obviously you are a musician, so I know you did say that you play and it's kind of a bit of an escape, but what about listening to music and listening to, the lyrics and the poetry, if you will, to help you get through some of the harder times, or even just to let the rage out?
I listen to music, not so much the lyrics, actually. It's the emotion of the tune. I get caught up in the actual music, not the lyric. And that's what kind of takes me to wherever I want to be. It's the feel. The feel is the most important thing to me. I've never really been a lyricist. I'm not a songwriter.
Okay.
But I can write music. I can come up with music, and it's the music that carries me away, that takes me where I need to be, when I want to get away. I listen to all kinds of music. I listen to Middle Eastern music. I grew up on Middle Eastern music. I listen to classical music. I listen to jazz. I listen to rock. Not so much rock because I play it all the time and I hear it all the time, but classical music and Middle Eastern music I really like. I like the rhythms. I like salsa. I like Latin music a lot. That's such a joyous music. When I want to feel really good, you throw on some salsa and you're good. You're just good to go. So
I'd love to learn about your musical journey. Obviously you said you grew up listening to a lot of different types of music. When did you actually pick up an instrument and start to play?
When I was 13. I was 13 years old. I had a cousin that was a few years older than me, about 3 years older than me. And what got me started playing was this young 16-year-old little blonde girl who I thought was the best thing I'd ever seen. And she was dating a guitar player in the local church band, the band in the church, did all the school dances and stuff like that. And I wanted to impress her, so I bought a guitar and was sitting there with the record player, trying to learn how to play, picking out notes on the guitar. And it's all learned by ear. But the hard way, sitting like everybody else my age. That's how we did it back in the day. We didn't have YouTube and all that stuff to show you how to do things, so we had to kind of figure it out. And but that's what started, you know, that this little 16-year-old girl. You know, I think that's most guys started out playing with some little honey somewhere, you know, that.
Yep.
And that's what inspired me. But then you really start getting into the instrument, you know, and you start getting into the music and learning. It just, even at that young age, just starts taking you someplace else, you know. And that's what got me going into music, you know, and trying to play all the influences that I had, and adapting them to what I could do, you know, what my capabilities and what I heard in my head. And so that was it. You know, that's how I got started.
Well, right now you are in the middle of a pretty insane journey. You are battling cancer. You are a musician who still loves to rock out. What, if you had one thing to say to others in a similar position to you, battling cancer, but just have a love for life and a love for music and creating, what would you say to them right now?
And there's so much. There's really so much. First of all, never give up. Never give up. Never let it control your life. As much as you can, try to avoid that. Try to continue. I'll tell you what I do. I can't tell you what to do, but I tell you what I do. I try to live my life as if I don't have cancer. I make it an inconvenience and not something that controls my life as much as possible. It's very, very important. Don't let it beat you. You can beat it. And as hard as it gets, you can beat it. You can make it easier on yourself when you have a positive attitude. That's really what it is. I mean, I do gigs. I feel sick sometimes. I really feel bad. But I get up and I do the gig as if I don't have cancer, as best that I can. Yes, there are days I get up there and I get dizzy when I'm playing. And a little funny story, if you're interested in this little funny story, I did a gig at this local venue that I play often, and we were up on stage. And one of the symptoms I get from the medications is I get very lightheaded and weak. It'll just come on me. And so I felt like I was going to pass out. So what I did was I was doing a solo when it hit me, and I decided I'm going to go out onto the dance floor. And I got among the dancers, and I just dropped down on my knees and continued my solo and put my head down and stayed there for maybe 45 seconds or so, until I felt better, until my head cleared up.
Fake it till you make it type of thing, right?
I made it part of the show. You know, nobody knew that's what was going on, but I did this whole act, and I felt better. I got up, went back up on stage and finished the song, and boom, we were done. And I felt okay. Unfortunately, though, it was the last song of the set. So when we finished, I got to sit down and go outside, get a little air, and
Yeah.
But those are the kind of things you need to do in your life, regardless of whether you're playing or not. When you're really feeling bad, don't let it beat you. Make it part. Work around it. There's always a workaround. You can do this. And that's my attitude. We're not all the same. We're all going to react differently to the same diagnosis, the same cancer. But that's my approach to it. I just don't. I try to ignore it as much as possible. I'm fortunate that I have a wife that is my advocate. You got to have an advocate. Don't ever go to the doctor. Don't ever have a conference or anything with your doctor without having an advocate there. When I first got diagnosed and they told me you have cancer, boom, I shut down. All I heard was cancer. I wasn't interested in anything else after that. And they were throwing all this stuff at me, and I couldn't hear them. I couldn't hear him, but my wife was there and she took notes. And when we got back home and I kind of absorbed what was going on, she helped me understand what was really happening. And very important to have an advocate.
Well, this week you were in the recording studio. You had a lot of people with you as you got to record, thanks to Cancer Can Rock. Did you make any new friendships? Have some bonding?
I made, I wrote down, I wrote down everybody's name because I do want to give these guys a shout out. In the rhythm section, my drummer, Andy Hamburger, who is just probably everybody's favorite drummer. He's one of the most sought after drummers in the DC area, and he did the drums, and he helped me. Andy helps me through a lot of things besides music. He's a great friend, and I told him that I needed a percussionist. I wanted a percussionist, and he brought in this, and he recommended this guy Eddie Montalvo, which, oh my God. As soon as even in his warm-up, I said, this guy is great. And he made it happen. And then, of course, there was Tony Echols on bass, who nailed that tumbao feel perfectly. My horn section was Joe Jackson on trombone, Chris Burbank on trumpet, and Bill Mulligan on sax. Buddy Spears, who owns 38 North, who owns a studio, who is an amazing guitarist. He also did the charts for me. He did the horn charts. And he just handed it to them right there. And the three guys lined up and they nailed it right away. It was fantastic. I was like, I couldn't believe it. It was just, things were just going by so quickly. And I'd also like to thank my keyboard player, José Luis Martins, who I could not have done this without him. He did such a great job. I had a great engineer, Sean Russell. This guy's a wizard. He's a wizard. If you ever have an opportunity to work with Sean, you'll see what I'm talking about. He's just a wizard on this thing. And then, of course, the man who puts the whole thing together, I don't know how he does it. He's just so cool. Jim Ebert, who was the producer on this thing. I just felt so comfortable right off the bat. And it's very important to be comfortable in the studio. And I hadn't been in a studio in 30 years. What I'm talking about, 50 years.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been 50 years. Last time I was in the studio was in the 70s. So having that opportunity was a big deal for me. It was a really, really big deal for me.
Well, before I let you go, Bill, if you ran into a stranger and they said, what have you been up to? And you said, well, I did this thing with Cancer Can Rock. And they said, what's that? Describe it. What is
Cancer Can Rock is, I've been aware of Cancer Can Rock and a supporter of Cancer Can Rock before I had cancer. But Cancer Can Rock is a great organization. I've seen some of the other videos that Cancer Can Rock do, and they break my heart. One of the reasons I didn't want to do it is because the cancer that I have is a very common cancer and a very treatable cancer. Some 65% of men are going to get this cancer. But I've seen videos that Cancer Can Rock has done for musicians who have horrible cancers and are really putting up a major fight. And this one day, they can go into a studio and record their work or somebody else's work, doesn't matter. They go into the studio that one day and it just opens up their lives. It opens up their lives. They can forget about the cancer. They can focus on their art, and for that one day, and it lasts forever. It will last forever, and that's the beauty of Cancer Can Rock.
Bill, thank you so much for sharing your story. I can't wait to hear everything. I know that fans of Cancer Can Rock are really, really rooting for you. So Thank you for giving me your time today. I appreciate
Very
it.
much. It's great talking to you. Thank you so much. And thank you, Cancer Can Rock, for what you did for me.